Are you thinking about selling your home in San Diego County as is? Trust me, I get it. Sometimes it's very daunting to think of spending a lot of money to get your house ready for the market, only to eventually hand that house off to somebody else and they get to enjoy all of the upgrades. Is it worth it to sell it as is? I'm Heather Myers, your go-to realtor here in San Diego County, and I follow the housing market so you don't have to. What are the secrets to selling your home as is? More importantly, what are the pros and what are the cons of doing this? In this video, we're going to talk about the pros and the cons, and I'll give you my personal advice as to when it's a good idea and not a great idea to sell your home as is. Let's dive in. So as I mentioned, selling your house as is, meaning no repairs. You are not going to worry about any major negotiations because here's the home, here's the price, and we're going to get it sold. So yeah, there are a few times that this does make sense. And let's kind of list off some of those times. Perhaps that you have to move in a hurry. Maybe you just took another job in a different city and you've got to sell this house fast. Maybe you're moving, you're going to enroll kids in a school somewhere else. Time is of the essence. You've got to get this house sold. It makes sense at that time, for the most part, just to sell it as is and then move on to your next adventure. There are other times too. Let's say perhaps you're dealing with a divorce or a separation. Maybe you and your partner are not agreeing about anything. The last thing you're going to be agreeing on is costly repairs or upgrades to the home. So selling it as is. Sometimes in that particular situation, it just makes the most sense. It's the least amount of headache and hassle. Maybe you've inherited a property and you just don't have the bandwidth to start making all these improvements and upgrades. It's time to sell the house in its current condition for the right price. So that's another opportunity where selling as is does make sense. And then there's another side to this too. Sometimes people just don't want to put the money into a house that they're about to say goodbye to. They're thinking, if I lived here without all of these fancy upgrades or without all of the, facelifting things that could be done to this property, I'm certainly not going to do it and then hand it off to the next person. So in that particular scenario too, I understand that entirely, that you're going to be selling the home as is. And I mentioned before, we're going to get into the pros and cons of doing this, how much money you might be leaving on the table, and then the very, very necessary requirements to making sure that your house is at least market ready. So let's start with the list of pros. What are the pros in putting your home on the market in its current condition without having to lift a finger or do one single thing to the home as far as investing money into it to get it ready to sell? So of course, speed and convenience. That's a big pro in selling the home as is. You don't have to worry about 2 to 3 weeks of getting the home ready for the market. You're just basically doing some cleanup on the inside of it, maybe doing some decluttering. Again, I didn't say spending any money. I just said getting the home ready for the market, ready for pictures, ready for marketing. Speed and convenience is a big pro to just selling the home as is. Sometimes when you're talking about upgrades like paint and repairs, depending on who you hire to do those upgrades, if they have a backlog of clients, it could be a couple of weeks before all of those repairs and upgrades are done. So speed and convenience, that's a huge pro. Number 2, you're saving on those upfront costs. Out of pocket, trying to really minimize what you're spending as you're getting your home market ready. Well, if you're not going to be making any repairs, then you're not spending that money. And we're talking about repairs in some instances. For instance, I just had a client that wanted to do an exterior paint on her home because there were some cracks in the stucco before putting it on the market. So together we looked at some bids for doing exterior paint. They were coming in anywhere from $10,000 to $25,000 to do exterior paint on her home. So those are the types of dollars I'm talking about saving if you're just going to put your home on the market as is. No upfront or very limited upfront costs. This does appeal when you literally market your home as is to all cash buyers, investors, and flippers. So as you can imagine, there can be a con with that, and we'll talk about that in just a moment, but that usually means a pretty speedy transaction, especially for the people that are coming in all cash. That usually can speed things up as far as time on the market. So you're going to have to give on some things in order to attract those types of buyers, but that's a pro if you're wanting to make this transaction very, very quick and oftentimes very smooth. When you sell as is, those are the types of buyers who immediately take a real solid look at your home, and that will typically make things go along a little bit faster. And another pro in putting your home up for sale in San Diego County as is, buyers, they know what they're getting. Less hassle, less negotiation. Sometimes when we sell a typical home, there comes an inspection period, and then the inspector will go back to the buyer and say, here's the list of everything that I found wrong or could be improved with the property. And then they hand that over to the seller, and then there's maybe a couple of days of negotiation, perhaps repairs that are being made, and that can drag out the process a little bit. So when you say as is in its current condition, then typically in most circumstances, the buyer is not coming back to you with a laundry list of things for you to fix, because when they put in their offer, they likely agreed to purchasing the home as is, since that's how you were marketing it. Okay, the list of cons of selling your home as is. And there are three main cons to doing this. Number one, you are likely leaving money on the table. Selling your home as is can sometimes be a little red flag to a potential buyer that there are issues with the property. Maybe there are some major issues, things like foundations that are cracked, roofs that need to be repaired. I've seen all the way down to homes that are like a hoarder house on the inside. We're selling it as is, but that usually means that you are selling it for a discounted price compared to what the other homes in the neighborhood will typically sell for or have sold for in recent months. So how much are we talking? Well, it just depends on the condition of your home. It could be anywhere from 5% all the way to 15% or more lower than the market price for your home. Well, if the median home price in San Diego County, let's just say, is right around $1 million still, well, we're talking about anywhere from leaving $50,000 to $150,000 on the table, if not more, depending on the condition of your home. So you do need to go into this knowing that when you're selling as is, the price needs to reflect it depending on the current condition of the property. The second con in selling the home as is there are fewer qualified buyers that can purchase a home as is. You're thinking, well, why is that? They might be getting a discount on my home if I'm selling it as is. Well, if the buyer needs a loan, oftentimes the lender requires that the home be in a certain condition, livable and safe condition, before they will sign off on that loan. And I'm going to talk about what some of those conditions are here in just a moment, but typically you're going to be going after those all cash investor buyers, maybe flippers. And if they come in all cash, then yeah, there are no certain safety requirements that they have to follow. Besides just a couple. So I do want to tell you that as far as selling your house as is, there are fewer qualified buyers, because sometimes you're getting that first time home buyer and they walk in and see an as is home that's a wreck inside. And that's not what they had in mind when they were a first time home buyer, especially if they needed a loan. FHA loans, VA loans, those have very strict requirements, especially those VA loans in purchasing homes. So you're going to eliminate that whole entire buyer pool when you're selling as is, if your home is not up to speed as far as those certain conditions require it to be. And I'm going to list off those here in just a moment. But the other thing is that appraisal red flags can still stall the sale. So maybe you've agreed to sell it in a certain condition as is, the buyer's agreed to purchase it in a certain condition as is. You get an appraiser in there and they say, no, not happening because of the condition of the house. It needs to check off a couple of things. So even if both parties have agreed to it, once you have the appraisal done, they may be the ones to kind of halt the process. So just letting you know that ahead of time before you put your home on the market. All right, I mentioned things that lenders require. So let's talk about those things that many lenders require depending on the type of loan that you might have as a buyer, or that the buyer might have if you're a seller. So for most properties, there's a minimum property standard required. This is what most lenders require. And here are a couple of things that entails. No exposed or unsafe wiring. We're talking about potential electrical issues. Yeah, clearly no one wants to loan on a home that could potentially have electrical issues. That could lead to fire issues. So yeah, that's one thing that you need to know about. The roof typically needs to be in somewhat decent condition. I know people often sell as is going, this is an old roof, it's got leaks. Sometimes lenders will put the halt on the whole deal if the roof does not have a couple of years left in the life of the roof. Plumbing and electrical systems must function, no active water leaks or water damage. The windows and doors must open, close, and lock properly. And the stairs have to have handrails, no tripping hazards in the property. Those are a couple of things that lenders, for the most part, will require when they lend on a home. So I wanted to tell you that because if your as-is property is lacking in some of those areas, those could be some things that hopefully won't be a major fix for you. Another thing though, California law has some specific things that you need to know about. The water heater has to be double strapped, earthquake safety straps to the wall. So it doesn't matter what type of buyers coming in to buy your as-is home, that has to be done in the state of California. Number two, there has to be working smoke detector and carbon monoxide detectors in the home. So that's another California law that there has to be working smoke detectors and carbon monoxide detectors in your home. So those are inexpensive fixes. I'm talking about $100 or less, even for those earthquake safety straps for the water heater. So those things have to be checked off to make sure that your home is ready to be sold in the state of California. Now I want to give you my personal advice on an as-is sale. It really depends on your personal situation. If you call me, we're going to talk it over. I want to hear your thoughts on selling your home as is, and then I'm going to give you my advice. Typically, though, if you can do this, I do recommend getting your home ready for the market. And that can often be spending some money to get your home ready to show, ready for people to imagine themselves living there. If we can just declutter and do a nice deep clean with a professional cleaning company, that could cost you less than $500 just to get that done. If you're willing to spend a little bit more in things like paint, a little bit of landscaping in the front for some curb appeal, cleaning the carpets and the windows inside of your home, those are the things that I want to make sure look really good. So if we can agree to spend maybe under $1,000, those are the dollars that we will likely get back when we sell your home in order to make sure that we're attracting the most amount of buyers as possible. Then if you're ready to spend a little bit more money, we'll talk about some of the things that perhaps your home could use or might need in order to boost property value. And we're always looking for things that you will get dollar for dollar back on. Because again, you don't want to spend all this money to get your home ready for the market to attract a buyer, and then you don't make that money up in the sale. So those are things that you and I are going to talk about individually once I come out and take a look at your home and kind of assess the value and what would be the right steps for you. So again, I will give you my honest advice and my professional opinion to help you net the most amount of money for your home as possible. Is it worth it just to sell it as is? Or would you be better off putting some money into it to get it ready for the market? Again, my name is Heather Myers. I'm your go-to realtor here in San Diego County. All of my contact information is in my bio. It's also in the description of this video. Speaking of videos, if you like videos like this one, don't be afraid to hit like and subscribe, and I will keep making them. Until next time, I follow the housing market, so you don't have to.